Hi everyone, we are going to cover the method for the third essay assignment, which is called the Toulmin Method. The Toulmin Method was created by Stephen Toulmin. It was proposed in 1958 in the Uses of Argument text, and it was designed to analyze courtroom cases. As we go throughout this discussion, there are questions built in. As you reach the questions, pause the video and take a few seconds to answer the question on your own to help facilitate that classroom discussion. The first thing to consider is that if the method was designed to analyze courtroom cases, what does this suggest to you in terms of your role as the author and how you address your audience? As you consider your role as the author, put yourself in the shoes of a prosecutor or a lawyer. What is their job? Ultimately, their job is to defend their client or to prove their case. Who is their audience? The audience is typically a jury, and they need to directly address the audience in order to prove their claim or their case. Imagine this scenario as a way to help you work through this assignment. Consider what argument is as well. Argument equals claim plus reasons. The claim is the conclusion of the argument. It is what you as the author aim to prove. The reasons are how you support or what evidence you provide to support the claim. This can be your ability to present a rhetorical argument, to support that argument with appeals to logos, ethos, and pathos, logic, credibility, and emotions. It can also be examples to illustrate your argument, possibly through a narrative process or an example from a source. Support from outside sources help you confirm your argument as well. The basic components of the Toulmin method include the claim, the support, and the refutation. The claim is what you aim to prove. This becomes your thesis statement. For this assignment, you should include a thesis statement that presents your stance on a debatable topic, and it should be written as a statement, not a research question. The support is how you aim to prove your claim. Consider your ability to present a rhetorical argument, to provide detailed examples to help the reader understand, and to utilize ample quality information from outside sources to persuade your reader. You'll also want to consider a refutation or concession section. The refutation acknowledges that another viewpoint exists and it directly refutes that argument. It disproves that argument. A concession acknowledges that another viewpoint exists, but you might need to concede to that viewpoint on some level. It's possible that the opposing viewpoint operates as an exception to the claim that you have just presented, or the opposing viewpoint presents a valid point and you have to consider how that factors into your argument. For the claim, there are three types of claims: claims of fact, claims of value, and claims of policy. For this assignment, choose either a claim of value or a claim of policy to formulate your thesis statement. You should use claims of fact to operate as support or evidence for that thesis statement. This means that the claim of value or claim of policy, whichever you choose, should be presented in the introductory paragraph. It should be clear to your reader whether or not you're making a value-based argument or a policy-based argument in the very first paragraph of your essay. Claims of fact, which operate as support or evidence to support your argument, should be worked throughout the entire body of the essay. A claim of value aims to prove that something is more or less socially accepted, desirable, or appropriate. This is typically based on widely accepted opinion, the concept of the humane, or qualitative research. Ultimately, the question is, what do we value and why should we value it more or less? Here's an example of a claim of value. The movie Silver Linings Playbook does an excellent job of depicting bipolar disorder. First, this topic is a claim of value because we identify the key word excellent. Excellent is one of those thumbs up words. This means that this author views this as a great example of this particular disorder. This is a debatable topic. Someone could easily agree or disagree with this. And this is something that you could use in a research essay in a course like this. You are allowed to choose your own topic, so this is a time for you to kind of think about the things that you value, the things that you like, and present those arguments. For this particular claim, this thesis statement, we would need lots of different types of research to support this, right? So we would need direct references to the film. We would also need possibly a critique of the film by a professional film critic, and absolutely we would need information related to this disorder published in reputable medical publications. The next example says, the right to privacy is more important than the need to increase security in airports. Again, we can identify this as a claim of value because of the phrase more important. We can also identify this as a debatable topic because we could agree or disagree with this. Someone could easily argue that privacy trumps security, or security trumps privacy. Claims of policy assert that specific policies should be instituted, should be removed as solutions to problems. For this particular kind of essay, what you want to consider is a policy that currently exists, that needs to be revised, and your argument focuses on what revision is needed and why it is needed. You could also consider proposing a policy as well, and your argument would focus on why this policy is needed, why it should be created. These types of thesis statements or claims are typically noticed with words or phrases like should not, must not. And again, this is based on a culmination of opinions, practicality, and available examples. One example of a claim of policy states that the Electoral College should be replaced by popular vote as the means of electing the president. As you can see, the phrase should be presents the stance on this topic, which could easily be disagreed with. In that case, we would say the Electoral College should not be replaced by popular vote as the means of electing the president. This is a claim of policy because it focuses on a process or a procedure that has already been implemented, and it determines whether or not that is a good or a bad process. Another example says South Carolina must require background checks for the private sale of guns. Again, this is debatable. We could easily add the word not so that the claim or the thesis statement reads, South Carolina must not require background checks for the private sale of guns. We can identify this as a claim of policy because it directly deals with legislation. As you consider the support for your argument, you'll want to consider all of the different ways you can support your argument. Think of all of the different discussion points and topics you've discussed as a class, and incorporate the variety of ways you can support your argument, your claim, your thesis statement into this essay. You'll also want to consider outside sources or secondary research to support your argument. Questions you should consider include what kind of sources are required and what kind of sources work best for your topic. On your assignment document, you will have requirements for your sources, but you also have to consider what works best for your topic. If you're required to have scholarly sources, make sure that you include scholarly sources, but you might want to be careful about which journal you select those scholarly sources from. If you're focused on a claim of policy, you may not want to go to a business journal or an education journal. If you're focused on a claim of educational policy, though, you would want to consult an education journal. Keep in mind that all sources should be credible. Claims of fact are also a great way to support your argument, and claims of fact typically assert that a condition has existed, currently exists, or will exist in the future. Typically, we identify claims of fact based on general consensus, but we might also consult data or scientific empirical research to identify claims of fact. An example of a claim of fact is the following. The diagnosis of autism is far more common than it was 20 years ago. We most likely could accept this as generally true if we were to consider what your parents knew about this diagnosis versus what you know about this diagnosis. We could also consult a variety of sources to confirm that this is a solid and true claim of fact. Questions to consider here: what essay topic could this claim of fact support? Another example of a claim of fact states, fast food contributes to the growing rate of childhood obesity. Again, we may be able to accept this as generally true, but we also could consult a variety of sources in order to confirm the accuracy of this statement. Ask yourself, what essay topic could this claim of fact support? As you consider the different types of support that you need for your claim, for your thesis statement, I want you to consider your reader and your audience as well. A really strong, a good argument is going to focus on the reader and the audience, and just like the lawyer addresses the jury, you need to address your audience as well. You need to know them, you need to address them with examples that will make connections, and with examples that will work for their perspective. Consider Maslow's hierarchy of need. You may be familiar with this. And consider the types of need that we might focus on with our pieces of support. Does your argument, does your claim relate to physiological needs? Food, water, shelter. Does your argument relate to safety? Does it relate to social need? Successful connections with people? Community? Does it relate to esteem? Any kind of success, achievement, or recognition? Or does it relate to self-actualization? If you're dealing with a topic that relates to any of these types of needs, include an example in your essay that helps the reader understand why your argument best supports that type of need. Connect to your reader on a very human level in this essay. As you move to the refutation, keep in mind that a refutation is an act of refuting, which means to disprove a statement or an argument. You'll want to first consider whether you have a refutation or a concession that opposing viewpoints absolutely exist. Remember, reasonable minds can disagree, and very few things in life are completely black or white. There's a lot of gray area. So, what opposing viewpoints do exist? Should you refute them, or should you make a concession? And how are you going to practice one of those techniques in your essay? As you work through this assignment document and you start to learn about what you're being tasked with, make sure to watch the annotated bibliography video as well, which will provide more information on the second portion of this assignment, the annotated bibliography, and how you can accomplish that.